Hello and welcome to the SQL Select and the Group by Clause presentation. This presentation is going to look at how the group by works, how it is internally processed, and what you can do with it. My name is Steve O'Hearn. I'm with databasetraining.com and Corbinian, and I am the author of a couple of books from Oracle Press, including the most recent SQL certified expert level exam guide. If you want to become a certified expert in SQL, my book is the one you would get for that. I've also been on Oracle TV. I'm behind the Cartesian Product Challenge, in case you've heard about that, and I'm also a formally recognized bona fide news source by the National Press Club on issues of information technology, including data analysis, predictive analytics, and related technologies. We're going to be looking at the structured query languages select statement group by. Within SQL, there's a number of different subsets of languages, and within them, in particular, is DML, or data manipulation language. DML includes 4 specific statements. The select statement is easily the most powerful, and it is within the select statement that we're going to be looking today. We're going to be specifically looking at, of all the clauses in the select, and there's many, we're going to be looking at group by in particular. So that's our frame of reference. Let's take a look. What group by does is it takes a set of rows that are the focus area of a given select statement and aggregates them, subsets them together according to a criteria that you specify. We'll see how that works. Once those sets of rows are set aside and are subsetted, are grouped together, then you can perform a function on each of the groups, producing one row of output for each individual group of rows. So no matter how many rows you may start with, the output of your group by could be anywhere between that and a single row. We'll take a look here. So let's look. Our sample database we're going to play with here. We made up a table called members. Members has 4 columns, and I just slapped together some data. Here you go. I'll give it 9 rows. We've got 9 members in our little sample database. Each one has a last name, each one is assigned to an office, each has a certain number of hours. Let's say these are hours budgeted for a given year for each person to work. The business challenge we are looking at is going to be to look at the average number of hours for each office. So what we're looking at here is an average number of hours per member, but averaged according to office. We don't want to get a single average for all 9 rows. We want to get a subset of averages, one for each office. And the average number we will ultimately calculate will be per member. So therefore we're looking at the rows of members. Each row equals 1 member, and that's what we will be averaging. But the calculation will be done to determine the average for each office. For example, we have a couple of members in the president's office, we have some in the finance office, we have some in the publisher's office. We want to get the averages by office and have that be our output. So the answer is, of course, a group by. And the group by statement, group by clause, will group by the office. And by naming the office column, we don't have to specify the values that are contained within. We have no idea necessarily what's actually in what the data values are. We don't necessarily know if there's pres or finance or pub or whatever. It could be operations, could be anything. We don't really care. We group by the office. We specify the column name from within the table, and that'll do it. So step 1 for internal processing of what the database will do once we send this statement to it. Step 1 is that it will internally group the rows according to office values. So in essence, it'll sort the rows according to the values that are found within the office column. Once we do that, we are looking in the sample that we'll end up with 3 different groups. 3 different groups for each of the values here, and that's just simply because of the nature of our sample data. There could be any number of groups. It depends on what's actually found within. So once that first stage is done, once the rows are sorted, the next thing to do is to actually calculate the average. And in this case, we're going to be calculating on finance, and then the president's office, and then the publisher's office, so that we have our values, and that's it. By doing this, we're able to, in essence, perform two steps with a single statement. The single select statement with the group by is a very powerful feature. The couple of issues that we need to keep in mind, though, the columns you can select in your select statement are limited. You can't just select anything when you're using the group by clause. You can without the group by clause, possibly. I mean, probably you're running a select statement stop and go, oh, I'd like to group some things. Well, then suddenly you're not able to select every column. You can only select columns that are the subject of the group. And in our case, we grouped by office. And or you can select columns that are the subject of an aggregate function. So you can average, you can do other, there's other aggregates, we'll take a look at those. But those are the only columns that you can select from. You cannot select others. And the reason is it doesn't make any sense. Because if there's going to be a single value representing each set of rows that fall within the group, there's got to be a logical way in which you can choose one value for that set. The database is not going to invent data or draw summaries or conclusions on its own. You've got to be very clear. So as you can tell, for example, in this sample data we're looking at, among the finance rows, there's no way you could have a single last name value represented for that group, that set of finance rows, or the set of president's rows, set of publishers rows. You can't. But we can do it for hours because we're averaging. We're not showing the actual 120 hours for the first row of finance for Smith, or we're not showing the Brown's numbers or 1909. We're showing the average. So we're calculating a single value for that set of rows, and that's what we're doing. The aggregate functions that are available to us are shown here. We've got 5 of them. And don't forget, you actually can use min and max and the count function with more than just numeric values. Those of us who are familiar with these aggregate functions sometimes forget that we think, well, we can only use these with numeric values. Well, that's not necessarily true. You can average numerics, of course, and you can sum numerics, and you can't do that. You can't sum text, you can't average dates. But you can count occurrences of values that are contained within a numeric column or a text column or a date column. And you can determine the maximum or the minimum value that is contained within that set of rows as well. So, and as you see in the asterisk footnotes here, max, when looking at text, is looking at values that move towards Z, the latter part of the alphabet, whereas a min value would be more like A. And a min or max date, min dates are earlier, max dates are later. So there you go. That's it. This has been fun. Thank you very much for paying attention here. Drop me an email sometime, and look forward to the next video.